The Pond-Moonlight by Edward Steichen. Imagine standing at the edge of a dark forest just before midnight. The air is still. A pale moon hangs low between the trees, and below you, a perfectly silent pond mirrors everything. The bare branches, the cold sky, the soft glow of that solitary light. You're not sure if you're looking at the world or its reflection. You're not sure it matters. This is The Pond-Moonlight, created in 1904 by Edward Steichen. And it is not just a photograph. It is one of the most debated, most celebrated, and most philosophically rich images in the entire history of photography. The man behind the lens. To understand this image, we need to understand the man who made it. Edward Steichen was born in Luxembourg in 1879 and emigrated to the United States as a child. He grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and showed an early, almost obsessive interest in art. As a teenager, he began experimenting with photography, not as a technical hobby, but as a genuine artistic pursuit, at a time when most of the world still considered photography a mechanical trade rather than a fine art. At just 21 years old, Steichen traveled to Paris. He painted, he studied, he absorbed everything the European art world had to offer. Symbolism, impressionism, the quiet revolution of light and mood happening in studios and salons across the continent. He became close friends with Alfred Stieglitz, the great American champion of artistic photography, and together they would go on to define what photography as art could mean. Steichen was a man of extraordinary range. He would later become one of the most important fashion photographers of the 20th century, working for Vogue and Vanity Fair. During both World Wars, he served as a military photographer and commander of photographic operations. And late in his life, as director of photography at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, he curated The Family of Man, one of the most visited photography exhibitions in history. But in 1904, he was 25 years old, standing in the woods of Mamaroneck, New York, and he was about to make something that would still be talked about more than a century later. Let us look closely at what we actually see. The composition is divided almost perfectly in half by a horizontal band, the far edge of the pond, the shoreline where water meets earth. Above it, a dense wall of bare trees, their trunks dark and vertical, like the pipes of a cathedral organ. And between them, just barely, the moon, a small, pale, intensely luminous disk, glowing with an almost supernatural blue-white light against a sky that shifts from deep teal to the darkest charcoal. Below the shoreline, the pond reflects this entire world back at us. The trees dissolve into vertical streaks. The moon becomes an elongated shimmer. The reflection is not a perfect copy. It is softer, more diffuse, more dreamlike than the scene above. And that distinction is everything. In the foreground, a flat, dark expanse, grass perhaps, or earth, grounds us, giving us a place to stand. It is the only element that does not reflect, the only solid, unremarkable thing in an image full of mystery. The palette is extraordinarily limited. Deep blue grays, near black browns, and that single, cool, luminous point of light. There is no warmth here, no summer. This is late autumn or early winter, a world stripped to its essential structure, lit only by the moon. The technical revolution. Now here is where the story gets genuinely remarkable, and where art history intersects with something almost like a detective story. The Pond-Moonlight was not printed in black and white. It was made using a process called the gum bichromate process, sometimes combined with platinum printing, which allowed Steichen to apply layers of pigment by hand to the photographic surface, controlling color, tone, and texture in a way that was closer to painting than to conventional photography. The result was that Steichen created multiple versions of this image, each slightly different in color and mood. Some versions show a cooler, more silvery night. Others have subtle green or brown tones in the water. The version we most commonly see today, the one held by the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, displays that extraordinary, almost impossible blue-green luminescence. And this is precisely what made the image so controversial. Critics who loved it called it proof that photography could be art, that the photographer's hand, eye, and intention were just as present in the final image as a painter's. Critics who were suspicious of it asked an uncomfortable question. If you manipulate the image this much, is it still photography, or is it something else entirely? Steichen's answer implicitly was that the question missed the point. He was not trying to document a moment. He was trying to express a feeling. The Pictorialist movement. The Pond. Moonlight is considered one of the supreme masterworks of Pictorialism, the artistic movement that dominated fine art photography in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. Pictorialists believed that photography should aspire to the conditions of painting and printmaking. They embraced soft focus, handwork, alternative printing processes, and above all, the deliberate construction of mood and atmosphere. They wanted photographs that felt like something, that carried emotional and aesthetic weight, not just informational content. In this image, every choice serves that goal. The soft edges where branches meet sky, the way the moon's reflection stretches and blurs in the water, the absence of any human presence, no footprint, no boat, no sign that anyone has ever been here. The world of this photograph exists outside of ordinary time. It feels eternal and slightly melancholy and utterly still. There is a strong influence here of the symbolist painters and poets Steichen had encountered in Paris. Artists who believed that the highest purpose of art was not to represent the world, but to evoke states of feeling that lay beyond ordinary language. The Pond. Moonlight does exactly that. It does not show you the night. It makes you feel the night. In 2006, a print of The Pond, Moonlight, sold at auction for $2.9 million, making it, at that time, one of the most expensive photographs ever sold. That number speaks to how seriously the art world has come to regard both Steichen and this particular image. But the real legacy of this photograph is not financial. It is the way it permanently shifted the conversation about what photography is and what it can do. Before Steichen's generation, photography was widely seen as a servant of fact. It recorded what was there. It documented. It could not lie, and therefore many assumed it could not truly create. The Pond. Moonlight is a quiet, decisive argument against that assumption. It says here is a photograph that is also a mood, a meditation, a poem. Here is an image made with a camera that is nonetheless the expression of a unique human sensibility. Here is proof that the person holding the camera matters, not just technically, but artistically, emotionally, spiritually. When you look at this image, really look at it, something interesting happens. The longer you stay with it, the harder it becomes to distinguish the real trees from their reflection. The world and its mirror become almost interchangeable, and you begin to wonder whether Steichen intended exactly that, a meditation on perception itself, on the relationship between reality and the image we make of it. In a way, that question, what is real and what is its reflection, is the central question of photography even today, more than 100 years later. Edward Steichen stood at the edge of a pond in 1904 in the dark and asked it first. Thank you for watching. If you found this analysis valuable, please subscribe and feel free to share your own thoughts on this image in the comments below.